2016 was an unbelievable year because of the Western Bulldogs and what they did through the final series, and that's where we start the deep dive this morning. So let's start with the first one. This was a huge shock for me. The West Coast Eagles were playing good footy. It was 6v7. The Dogs finished 7th on the ladder, and they smashed them pretty much right from the start. The Doggies winning by 47 points. Then the Hawks, they had next, who'd won 3 premierships in a row. They wiped them out too at the MCG, where they overwhelmed them by 23 points. This is one of the great finals you'll ever see in your life. The Giants, this was the best side I think the Giants had at this time, and the Western Bulldogs beat them in a 6-point thriller there at Giants Stadium, and then they turn up on grand final day, where I didn't think they'd win this one either, and they just kept defying the odds. So I'll never forget the euphoria of that. Jason Johannesson wins the Norm Smith medal. Tom Boyd's heroics, Pickens' heroics. There were storylines everywhere. Jakey Stringer was involved. And
Bont was good too.
Yeah, Bontempelli was huge, and they won by 22 points against the Sydney Swans there, without really a star-studded, spine that they had in that period, with Bobby Murphy also missing. The mark and goal of the year, Majak Dor actually won the mark of the year for North Melbourne. So, this clip probably doesn't show, but watch the next 2 clips of this one. Just the height that he got up in that grab against Collingwood at Marvel Stadium. So well done to Majak, who just recently retired. And also the goal of the year, the same pocket, it's Eddie Betts again, who won the 2016 goal of the year. So it's like he tricks everyone here. He cons them. Is it out of bounds, isn't it? And then he dances around them and just kicks a snap. And Rashudo at Hudson couldn't believe that Eddie Betts had done it again.
Well, 2016 was the first year of Paddy Dangerfield as a Cat after an already great career as a Crow, and he managed to secure the Brownlow medal in that first year by polling 35 votes. Was a clear and massive winner over Luke Parker of the Sydney Swans, who was on 26 votes. Averaged 31 disposals that particular year, 7 clearances a game, and it was as dominant a home and away season as you're probably ever going to likely see, TJ?
Well, in the first segment of this show, we were talking about the woes at Essendon, and there were woes aplenty for Essendon in 2016 in particular. That's when the Court of Arbitration for Sport decided to wipe out 12 of their listed players, and there they are there with Joe Watson sitting there front and centre of that media conference in South Yarra, I think it was, from memory. He would later have to hand back his Brownlow medal, and the jury's still out as to whether that should have happened or not. 34. But as a result of those 12 players being benched...
Yeah, why was the jury out?
As to whether he should have given it back.
Well, he was banned for what happened. Well, I would have thought he'd have to give it back.
Well, if we were 5 minutes under as opposed to 5 minutes over, I'd debate it with you, Damo. We might do that for another day. But I'm certainly of the view that he shouldn't have given his Brownlow back. But anyway, he did. Essendon's 12 players were wiped out, and they won only 3 games for the season.
And a big milestone happening this year, TJ, on a more positive note. Boomer Harvey breaking the all-time games record. What a player he was. Just an impossible player to tag, Boomer Harvey, because he was so smart, could go forward, could go midfield, and could turn one possession into 4. So what a career it was. He perhaps still might have been able to play for a little bit longer on, because they made some big calls at the end of this year as well. North Melbourne, they delisted Drew Petrie, Michael Ferrito, Nick Del Santo, and that man, Boomer Harvey, and since 2016 it's been all downhill at North Melbourne, unfortunately.
So the last game of the season saw Sydney beat Richmond by 113 points to end off the 2016 season. This was an absolute belting, and then kick-started a board challenge from Focus on Footy. They retained that man Damien Hardwick, who appeared to be out the door, but then from that moment, that game, the next year, they went on to win 3 of the next 4 premierships. There is Focus on Footy. They didn't get up. The current board stayed in, Damien Hardwick stayed in. The rest is history, as they would say. 3 premierships from the next 4 from a very, very dark day. Brendan Gale got out the front and said we want 75,000 members, and that happened as well.
That challenge wasn't even a challenge in the end, was it? That was as far as it got.
It pretty much was. They'd identified Neil Balmer as being someone they wanted, and then the incumbents managed to get him across, and it just fizzled out. But it did sharpen them up. There's no doubt it sharpened them up.
I remember Kane and I were doing trade radio together. It was an outside broadcast at Dockland Stadium, and the news came through to us that Mitchell and Lewis were going to be on the trade table, and this was at the end of the season. It was just a huge shock. Sam Mitchell went to the West Coast Eagles, and then Jordan Lewis also was. I think Clarko went round to his house and said maybe you should look at your options as well, Kano, when he went to Melbourne.
What a story. It was absolute bombshell, and Luke Hodge a few years later left as well. So who would have thought those superstar Hawthorn premiership players, multiple, would have finished their careers at other clubs?
Good work, Llordo. So 2016 was the year. 2017 next week, of course.